Aliyah had lived her life surrounded by privilege. She was the daughter of one of the wealthiest businessmen in town, accustomed to luxury, protected by status, and guided by rules that left little room for choice. But when she met Zion, the rules began to blur. Zion was nothing like the men her family had introduced her to. He wasn't rich, nor was he from a high-profile background. He was a simple, self-made man with a quiet confidence and a warmth that drew Aliyah in like gravity. They met by chance, at a university event, where Aliyah's laughter filled the air, and Zion's eyes couldn't help but follow. What began as casual conversations quickly grew into late-night phone calls, stolen glances, and the kind of love that defied reason. For Aliyah, Zion was freedom. For Zion, Aliyah was a dream he never dared to chase, until she chose him. But love rarely arrives without resistance. Aliyah's parents would never accept someone beneath their social class. Their expectations were clear. She would marry someone equal to their wealth and status, not a man who built his life with his own hands. When her father discovered their relationship, the storm broke loose. "You will not throw away your life for a man who has nothing," he thundered, his voice echoing in the marble halls of their mansion. Aliyah's eyes, though teary, did not waver. "He may not have money, Baba, but he has honor. He has love. Isn't that enough for a lifetime?" But her words fell on deaf ears. The household turned into a prison, her phone confiscated, her freedom stripped. Yet even walls cannot hold back a determined heart. One night, trembling with both fear and hope, Aliyah made her choice. With only a small bag of clothes and the weight of her decision, she slipped out of her home and into the waiting arms of Zion. They didn't have the luxury of blessings or the grandeur of tradition. Instead, they had a quiet courthouse, 2 trembling signatures, and promises whispered like prayers. It was reckless, it was risky, and yet, it was theirs. For Zion, that moment was the fulfillment of a lifelong promise to protect her happiness. For Aliyah, it was liberation, love over status, heart over wealth. But what neither of them knew was that beyond the joy of their union awaited the shadows of disapproval, shadows that would soon take the form of Zion's mother. Life after marriage was not the fairy tale Aliyah had dreamed of. Though she and Zion shared a small, cozy apartment, and though his smile never failed to make her heart lighter, there was another presence in the house, one that cast a constant shadow over her. Happiness. That presence was Zion's mother, Farida. From the very beginning, Farida had made her disapproval clear. She saw Aliyah not as a daughter-in-law, but as a rival who had stolen her son's affection. To Farida, love marriages were acts of rebellion, and Aliyah's wealthy background only deepened her resentment. "You may have money in your blood," Farida often sneered, "but here, you are nothing. You will earn your place." Day after day, Aliyah found herself walking on eggshells. No matter how early she rose to cook breakfast, Farida found flaws. Too salty, too bland, you don't know how to feed a family. When Aliyah tried to help with house chores, Farida's criticism stung sharper than any physical blow. "Rich girls don't know the meaning of hard work," Farida spat one evening, as Aliyah quietly folded laundry. "You think you can buy respect? Not in my home." Zion, devoted to his work, often left early in the morning and returned late at night. Aliyah made sure her face was painted with smiles when he was around. She laughed at his jokes, served him tea with care, and never once let her eyes betray the storms she faced. Because love, she believed, was sacrifice. And if she told him the truth, she feared he might be torn between the two people he loved most, his wife and his mother. So she endured. Nights became her solace. After Farida retired to her room, Aliyah would sit by the window, staring at the moon as though it were the only witness to her pain. She whispered silent prayers for strength, telling herself that love was worth every bruise her heart carried. What she didn't know was that silence, too, has a breaking point. And one day, it would shatter. The days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. From the outside, Aliyah's life appeared ordinary: meals cooked, chores completed, a dutiful wife waiting for her husband's return each evening. But beneath that surface lay a world of unspoken torment. Farida's cruelty never softened. If Aliyah spilled a drop of tea, it became a storm of insults. If she folded the bedsheets imperfectly, she was called useless. If she wore a dress Farida disliked, she was accused of trying to seduce her son with wealth and beauty. Aliyah's heart bore these wounds silently. She hid them behind carefully practiced smiles, the kind that made Zion believe everything was fine. He never saw her trembling hands as she served dinner, or the tears she quickly wiped away before he stepped through the door. "Are you happy, love?" Zion would ask her sometimes, his eyes searching hers with tender concern. And every time, she would nod, forcing a smile. "Yes, Zion. With you, I'm always happy." Her words were not lies, she truly was happy with him. His love was the light she clung to, the warmth that kept her alive. But it was also the reason she endured everything in silence. She couldn't bear the thought of causing a rift between him and his mother. At night, when he wrapped his arms around her, she felt safe, like the cruel world couldn't reach her inside his embrace. Yet when morning came, reality returned, and she found herself again at the mercy of Farida's bitterness. One evening, when Zion was held up late at work, Farida's temper flared worse than ever. "You think you can steal my son with your fake sweetness?" she hissed, slamming the dishes onto the table. "You may have tricked him, but I see through you. You will never be good enough for this family." Aaliyah's eyes stung with tears, but she kept her voice steady. "I never wanted to take him away from you. I only want to love him, to make this house a home." Farida's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Love? Don't speak of love when you've ruined everything with your selfishness." That night, Aaliyah sat by the window again, staring at the moon with wet cheeks. Her soul ached. Yet she told herself one thing: as long as Zion's love remained hers, she could endure anything. But destiny was weaving its own plans. Soon, Aaliyah's carefully hidden wounds would no longer remain hidden. It was an ordinary afternoon, the kind where sunlight spilled lazily through the curtains and the house hummed with silence. Zion had returned home earlier than usual, a quiet smile on his face as he carried flowers in his hand. He wanted to surprise Aaliyah, to see the joy light up her eyes the way it always did, when he showed her even the smallest gesture of love. But as he stepped into the hallway, he froze. From the kitchen, raised voices cut through the stillness. He moved closer, his smile fading with every step, until the words became sharp and undeniable. "Useless girl." Farida's voice lashed out like a whip. "I should never have let my son marry you. You're nothing but a burden." Zion's heart clenched. For a moment, he thought he must have misheard. But then he saw it: Aaliyah, standing with her head bowed, her hands trembling as she held a tray. Farida's hand struck the tray from her grip, dishes shattering across the floor. The flowers in Zion's hand slipped, falling to the ground. Aaliyah turned sharply at the sound, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. She hadn't wanted him to see this, her pain, her humiliation. "Zion," she whispered, voice breaking. But Zion's gaze had already shifted to his mother. Shock, disbelief, and anger surged through him. "Mother, how could you?" Farida stiffened, caught in the storm of her son's eyes. "I did what I had to. This girl tricked you, Zion. She doesn't belong in this house." "No," his voice thundered with a finality she had never heard from him before. "She belongs with me. She is my wife, my partner, my heart. And no one, not even you, has the right to treat her this way." Tears spilled down Aaliyah's cheeks as she tried to speak. "Zion, please, don't fight. I never wanted to come between you and..." He silenced her with a gentle touch, his hand cupping her face. His eyes softened, brimming with pain at the truth he had finally uncovered. "You suffered all this? And you never told me?" Her silence was the only answer he needed. Zion gathered her into his arms, shielding her as though he could erase every cruel word she had endured. In that embrace, Aaliyah felt something shift. Her burden was no longer hers alone. He had seen, he had understood, and now, she was no longer alone in her struggle. Farida's protests echoed faintly in the background, but Zion did not let go. His love, fierce and unshaken, became Aaliyah's shield. And in that moment, as tears blended with the warmth of his embrace, she realized, the unveiling of her pain was not the end of their love story, it was the beginning of a deeper one. That night, the air in the house was heavy. Farida shut herself away in her room, muttering bitterly. But her words no longer carried the same power. The truth had been seen, and nothing could erase it. In the quiet of their bedroom, Aaliyah sat silently on the edge of the bed, her fingers twisting the hem of her dupatta. She feared Zion's anger, not at her, but at himself, for not realizing sooner. She feared the crack this revelation might bring into his world. But Zion knelt before her, gently taking her hands into his. His eyes, filled with sorrow and tenderness, searched hers. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked softly. "Why did you carry this alone?" Her voice trembled as she replied, "Because I love you. I didn't want you to choose between me and your mother. I thought, if I bore it silently, maybe one day her heart would soften. And until then, I could find my happiness in you." Zion's chest ached with both guilt and admiration. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as though he could gather every shattered piece of her heart and put it back together. "You don't have to suffer to prove your love, Aaliyah," he whispered against her hair. "From now on, I will be your shield, your comfort, your joy. You'll never stand alone again." Aaliyah's tears spilled freely, but for the first time, they were not tears of pain, they were tears of release. In the days that followed, Zion's devotion became her healing balm. He stood firm against Farida's bitterness, no longer allowing her cruelty to reach Aaliyah. And every evening, when he returned home, he filled their little world with love. They cooked together, laughed over small things, and shared quiet moments of tenderness. Each touch, each smile, each whispered word of affection wove a cocoon around Aliya's wounded soul. There were still challenges. Farida's disapproval did not vanish overnight, but Aliya found that when Zayn's arms were around her, the weight of her struggles grew lighter. His love didn't erase the scars, but it gave them meaning. It reminded her that even in the darkest shadows, light could find a way. One evening, as they sat together beneath the stars on the small balcony, Aliya leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know," she murmured, "when I am with you, all the pain disappears. It's as if your love makes me forget everything else." Zayn kissed her forehead, smiling softly. "Then let me keep reminding you, every day, that our love is stronger than anything that tries to break it." And in that moment, Aliya knew she had found her home, not in wealth, not in acceptance, but in the unwavering love of the man who had chosen her as his forever. Because love, when true, has the power to heal every wound, silence every cruelty, and transform even the deepest sorrow into strength. And so, though shadows remained, Aliya's world was no longer dark. For where love lived, the shadows could never win.